In this movie, we'll look at animating graphic symbols. If you're following along, I'm in 07_animating.fla in the Chapter 6 folder in the Exercise Files folder. What we're going to do in this movie is make the robots march. We're going to do that by putting our animation inside of the GFC robot graphic symbol. That way, all three of the robots on the stage will animate without us having to create individual animations for each robot. To create the animation inside of the symbol, we'll have to enter symbol editing mode. To do that, let's go through the library. Double-click the GFC robot symbol icon in the library to enter symbol editing mode. And now you can see the robot on the stage. Remember, we know that we're working in symbol editing mode because next to scene 1 at the bottom of the timeline, we see GFC robot. Also, the background of the robot is empty. That not only tells us that we're in symbol editing mode, but that we're not using edit in place mode. What we're going to do now is create a very simple animation of the robot marching. I'm going to zoom out to 50%. I'm going to do that by using a tool at the bottom of the timeline. The very bottom right of the timeline, you can see your zoom percent, which right now is 100 for me. Your zoom percent might be a little bit different. To the right of that are 2 arrows. If you click the arrows, you'll be able to choose a zoom percentage. I'm going to choose 50%. And now I can see the whole robot. What I'm going to do is rotate the robot using the Free Transform tool. With the robot selected, select the Free Transform tool in the toolbar. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so I can see a little bit below the robot. If we rotated the robot right now, we would rotate it around the axis of the robot's neck. That's where the transformation point is, right in the center of our selection. That would give us unrealistic motion for the robot marching. So if you think about it, when you walk or if you've ever seen a robot in a movie walk, they don't rotate around their neck. Movement like that will look unnatural and awkward. So what we'll do is select the transformation point and drag it a little bit below the robot. Rotating the robot around this point will make its marching look a little bit more realistic. Now what I'm going to do is rotate the robot slightly to the left. I'm going to do this by hovering my mouse over the top right transform handle until my cursor changes to the rotation icon. And I'm going to click and drag just a little bit to the left. Let's select frame 2, press F6 on the keyboard to create a keyframe, and now we'll rotate the robot to the right. We'll have to move the transformation point again first. Click the transformation point in the center of the robot and drag it below the robot. Hover your mouse over one of the corner handles of the robot until you see the rotation icon, and then click and drag until the robot rotates to the right just a little bit. Now let's go to the main timeline and see what we have. Click Scene 1 at the bottom of the timeline to return to the main timeline. Now you can see that all of the robots are rotated a little bit. Let's test the movie and preview this animation. Press Command-Return on the Mac or Control-Enter on the PC to preview the animation. Notice that there's no animation happening at all. Why is that? Let's talk about that. First, we'll close this window. In order to display an animation that's nested inside of a graphic symbol on the main timeline, you need to extend the main timeline to accommodate the frames within the graphic symbol. In other words, the animation in the graphic symbol animates along with the main timeline. Frame 1 of the main timeline is frame 1 of the graphic symbol, and so on. In order to see both frames of the animation, we'll have to extend the timeline of the main timeline to frame 2. To do that, let's first deselect all the frames. Click in the pasteboard or the gray area off the stage to deselect all the frames. Then, click and drag from frame 2 of the robots layer down to frame 2 of the background layer. Once you've selected all the frames, press F5 on your keyboard to extend the timeline to frame 2. Notice as soon as you press F5, the robots tilt to the right. That's because on frame 2, instead of the robot graphic symbols, the robots are tilted to the right. And now if we test the movie, we'll be able to see the robots marching. Press Command-Return on the Mac or Control-Enter on the PC to test the movie. There are our marching robots, moving way too fast. Let's slow this animation down. I'm going to click in the pasteboard to deselect everything, and then in the Property Inspector, in the Frame Rate field, I'm going to modify the frame rate to 2 frames per second. Then I'm going to click in the pasteboard again to deselect everything. Now test the movie using Command-Return on the Mac, Control-Enter on the PC. There are our marching robots. Let's close this window. This animation would look just a little bit better if the middle robot didn't move in the same way that the front and back robots do. How can we do that? Well, if we flip the robot horizontally, it'll start out tilted to the right and then move tilted to the left. So let's go back to the first frame, unlock the robots layer, lock the stars layer, and select the middle robot on the stage. And then, to flip the robot horizontally, choose Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Now, test the movie using Command-Return or Control-Enter on your keyboard. And now we have the robots marching. Let's close this window. And there's a look at animating graphic symbols.